And let's go to rugby. Mike McCarthy is with us. We're going to talk about the weekend's Heineken Champions Cup action. Mike, good morning to you. We may as well actually start with Connacht. You were covering Connacht for BT at the weekend. The benefit of a win like that isn't just that you get the points on the board. It's also that you come through a traumatic experience with the injuries and you get a win in front of your home crowd. The team bonds together. So it's unbelievably valuable for a team that is in the evolutionary phase that Connacht are in at the moment to have come through last weekend. How quickly do we see the benefits of that?
They'll certainly be travelling to Toulouse with a spring in their step. As you said, they had gone through a pretty tough couple of weeks really, because while they started the season very well in the Pro 14, they were ravaged by injury. I think it was counted as 16 players out injured that they couldn't select from. Adding to that, they got absolutely physically dominated by Connacht the week before at the sports ground, every aspect of the game. But most worryingly, with the French team in Montpellier coming to the sports ground, they got dominated up front. The scrum, the maul defence, they really struggled with. And the signs going forward to play a team like Montpellier, you look at the size of that team, a team that had 7 internationals starting, 6 of those in the forward pack, the Duplessis brothers to come off the bench. And all the chat all week was, and I must admit, I got it wrong myself, was how big, how strong and how physical this Montpellier team come to the sports ground were against the injury-ravaged Connacht. But a week in sport is a long time, and maybe since I've been retired I forgot that, because no doubt they had a very tough week in the reviews, and they came out ready to scrap, ready to fight, and that's exactly what we expect at the sports ground. And we didn't see that the week before against Leinster. But when you look through the 16 injuries, I think Paddy McAllister, Finlay Bealham, Gav Thornbury, Quinn Roux in the second row, Sean O'Brien back row, Kieran Marmion out for 4 weeks, Tom Farrell, Tiernan O'Halloran, Matt Healy, and to lose 3 of those just before kickoff was another big knock. And to concede a try after 70 seconds when Aaron Cruden scored, things certainly weren't looking good. But the guys really fought, and their discipline was good. Their defence of the maul was incredibly good, and Montpellier just couldn't get that going. They brought a line speed and a physicality in defence which we didn't see against Leinster the week before, and I think they surprised Montpellier. Montpellier would have watched that game before, so it was a great win and gives them real hope going now towards Toulouse. And with Gloucester losing that first game to Toulouse, Gloucester have got a tough game away to Montpellier this week. And what it means if Gloucester don't win against Montpellier, they're more than likely probably going to be out. And so when Connacht come to play Montpellier when they come to play Gloucester in December back to back, you could see a weakened side from Gloucester, and that could be very beneficial for Connacht, hopefully getting out of the group stages.
Toulouse are second favourites to win the competition overall, so it's obviously a very, very difficult task that Connacht are facing this weekend. The confidence that they've taken from the first week, what's a realistic outcome from an away trip to Toulouse these days? They're not the Toulouse team, the great Toulouse team of Guino Bez, but they're certainly making strides to get back there.
Yeah, you saw 13 months ago, Leinster played Toulouse there and lost, and it was a close game, but that kind of just emphasises how big a task it is. We all know what a task it is to play a French side in France. Is a completely different prospect, but they'll certainly take belief from that Montpellier game, that they'll have a few guys back from injury. But I suppose realistically, to come away with a losing bonus point would be a huge positive. But it's going to be a huge task. To lose at home is a very difficult proposition.
Is there anything specifically you can do against a team like Toulouse? Is it just do the basics and fundamentals right, or is there a specific element of your game plan that you look to try and put a team like Toulouse under pressure?
First of all, I think you need a really good start playing away in France. You need a really good start. You need to quieten down that French support that really gets behind their home team. You need to be incredibly disciplined. If you start giving, it's probably the same game plan as when they play Montpellier at home. If you start giving penalties away, stupid penalties, not rolling away, slightly offside, it's just going to play to their strengths. All French teams have humongous packs, so they'll just kick to the corner, get their biggest weapon going, which is their driving line out there, their maul and their scrum. So they've got to be incredibly disciplined, and they've got to bring a physicality and edge which we didn't see against Leinster, but we did see against Montpellier, where they're just really hungry for work. They're getting up off the line. They're taking down those big ball carriers' space, chopping them, getting them to ground really quickly, and they've just got to be relentless all day. So I think those three things: physicality and edge, discipline, and starting the game very well. Another would be, and they've got Jack Carty to do that, is to have a really sensible kicking game. Knowing when to play and when not to play, and just keep turning that big heavy pack and kicking the corners.
You mentioned Marmion a bit earlier. Obviously, the news came through this week that he's going to be staying, that he won't be heading off. Obviously, I wonder if the Saracens issue ended up having an impact on whether or not he was ever going to go there. But how big a signing is this for Connacht, and how important is it that they keep players? I mean, obviously, Bundy Aki is the next on the list that they need to sign, and getting a deal done for him would be a huge thing.
Yeah, just adds another layer of positivity. I mean, I have a massive effect, and you never know. Small things like that could be the difference between Bundy signing and not signing. When you're looking to sign to stay on, you're probably looking to see who's re-signed, who are they looking to get in, how's this team looking to progress. So it's a huge statement to have Kieran Marmion re-sign. I heard it was Ulster that were after him. To put that to bed, to have beaten Montpellier last week in the way they did, it's another layer of positivity. Added to the fact that they've got the sports ground ready to be redeveloped, 30 million, turning it into a 12,000 stadium. It's just adding further layers of positivity to everything. So that'll have a huge impact in terms of other players that will want to come in and play for Connacht. And it'd be hugely positive for everyone within the environment. All
right. Also in France this weekend, Leinster are at Lyon. Lyon were beaten by Northampton last weekend, so they need a win to stay in the competition. I know you've been doing a bit of digging on how this Lyon team are likely to play the game this weekend. A bit of a scouting report. What are your scouts and spies telling you?
Yeah, no, I'm very good friends with someone involved in the Northampton Saints setup, and he just gave me a little bit of information on how they look to play and some of their key threats. But I think Leinster can't underestimate this Lyon team, and I'm sure they won't. But I think the Lyon team was slightly weakened to the team they'll play at home this week. Lyon gave away 24 penalties in that game against Northampton. Now, when you give away 24 penalties, anything more than 10, you're really struggling to be in with a chance of winning the game. 24 penalties is a ridiculous amount of penalties to give away, and how they are even, the scoreboard even looks, reasonably close. I'm not sure, so I'm sure they'll clear up that aspect and they'll be looking for less than 10 penalties. But they're their typical French side. We all know French packs: big, grisly, powerful, strong, really dangerous backline. But they play with huge amounts of ambition, and they play with an expansive style of game under the Pierre Mignoni, the coach, former 9, who worked under Joe Schmidt and Vern Cotter at Claremont. And Contepomi's been speaking very highly of him. How he's a hard worker, he's really good coach, so he's got a lot of time for him. But slightly different to other French sides, they look to counter attack from their own half. So off kickoffs, they have big Carl Ferns, the number 8 back. He's a huge man, and they're not looking just to set up a ruck and then to exit with a box or a field position. They're looking to play. They're looking to find space, and they're looking to attack you. And they are one of the few sides in France that play from deep. Kick-off exits, as I said, the first option is to run. And then when they do decide to kick, they've got a really good kicking game where they can kick long and gain territory. And I suppose, from speaking to my mate in the camp, he said the key players for them is, Fernandez at 10. He's a poor defender, but he's got a lot of trick plays and plays close to the line. And within the camp, apparently Boyd thinks the 12. I think Ngate he's a Kiwi. He's one of the best Kiwis, apparently, not to get a cap. The guy who plays in the yellow scrum cap. We mentioned Carl Ferns. Big, go forward. They use him a lot on special plays and line-outs and peels around the back and the front. Liam Gill, who's mentioned apparently in the same breath as Pocock and Hooper, the Australian, really fast at the breakdown and for turnovers. And Simbella, the big number 8, really powerful defender. But a lot of similarities to a lot of the top French sides. They're big, they maul a lot. Scrum's a big weapon for them, and they scrummage a bit like Argentina with the two props pincering in, which can cause a lot of pressure on teams. But in general, they've got really good shape. They look to find space, and they've got some really dangerous Fijian wingers out there. We all know of Tuisova.
Is this something I wonder over the next 2, 3, 4 years that is going to be a trend that the French teams are just going to get better and better and better? Because it's been a theme for us about peaking at the right time, but for the French it's peaking for 2023 specifically, and we all know how close they came to a World Cup semi-final on the World Cup that they weren't supposed to be taking that seriously.
Yeah, sorry, for France.
Yeah, and kind of how that will filter down to the clubs.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, having Sean Edwards there is massive. It'll be interesting to see whether he can change that culture, that environment, because people with a lot of experience and great players and great coaches have gone there before. You think on the outset they'll make a huge difference, but we all know the French culture is that they don't really like change. They don't really adapt to change. They think the system that they use and have is working. So there's no better man to go in and stamp his foot down than Sean Edwards and try and make those changes, get them fitter, get that mindset, that hunger to get up off their feet and be relentless all day. So whether Sean can do that, only time will tell. But it's a great addition to have him. But the other thing as well is it's getting harder and harder each season for foreign players to go in. To get into French clubs and play there. So that's only a good thing in terms of the number of French players they're bringing through the systems and that are going to be playing for the top 14 sides.
The other game this weekend is another France game. It's Munster against Racing. As somebody who obviously has gone back to former clubs at various stages in your career, how important is it, or does it matter at all, that Racing have a bunch of ex-Munster players? And it's not obviously not the first time they've been back to Thomond either, but does it matter in games like this? Does it give you a little bit of extra insight, or does it care? Does anybody care?
Well, it'd certainly give you a lot more insight. Simon Zeba and Donica Ryan, they'll be absolutely buzzing about going back to Thomond Park. And I know Donica's played Racing twice, but he's not been back to Limerick since he's been at Racing. So they'll be hugely excited. And when you go back to an old former club, there's something mentally and physically, you just kind of lift your game a bit more, and you want to show what a big loss you were to that club. But Skin Ryan, Donica Ryan's a clever player. He runs a line out. He'll have great insight into how Klein and Holland and the likes work in the line out, what they're looking to do in defence, what they're looking to do in attack, and he'll no doubt come up with a plan. And having that knowledge and insight of what they're looking to do, it could be a plan that's hugely disruptive to Munster. But they'll just be hugely excited to go back there. A good win for Racing against Sarries, but we know Sarries were depleted with a lot of players. Racing not going particularly well in the French league, and Munster played against an Ospreys team who have been very poor this season, but Ospreys certainly lifted their game against Munster, and great to see Munster get the bonus point in that 85th minute. Showing that grit, fight, determination that we all know with Munster.
Ulster have Claremont this weekend as well. Just briefly, a very, very tough task. But if they were to manage to win this, then they're in a great situation in a very tough pool.
Yeah, I mean, to get an away win and then a home win, they're definitely on the front foot. Going the further forward you go, the worry for me is not having Joey Carberry, who came back from the World Cup. He's really frustrated that ankle injury he had. Probably came back too soon. Probably wanted to come back too soon. To play in a World Cup. So he seems to be out for a long time. So the bigger the games, and the more important the games get, he's a massive loss. So I'm not sure the time frame, but I don't think it's any time soon he's going to be back. So he's a huge loss. But great to see the other provinces doing so well. We've mentioned Connacht with Leinster's. It's difficult bringing in players from a World Cup, as I saw in 2015 when we really struggled in a pool game. We got beaten at home at the RDS against Wasps, and I think it was like 19 or 20 players we brought back in, and it is very difficult getting everyone on the same page. Players being able to adapt to a new set of calls, that cohesion, that togetherness. It takes 3, 4, 5 weeks to get that. So they had a bonus point win against Treviso. Obviously, Gary Ringrose getting the hat trick, but they'll be looking to certainly improve. And we mentioned 13 months ago going down to Toulouse. I'm sure they've learnt a lot of lessons from that game where maybe they got caught a little bit with the intensity of first week of European rugby playing away in France.
I wonder as well for these Leinster players, Mike, is it kind of an added difficulty getting back in with Leinster? Like just the kind of difference between being involved in a Joe Schmidt setup and then being involved in a Leo Cullen, Stuart Lancaster setup. They are kind of two different worlds, it seems. And maybe I'm just judging them on style of play and what their kind of philosophies are. But perhaps it hammers it home a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's been spoken about, by Dricko and Issa Nasiwa. They are two very different coaches, but brilliant in their own right. There's no time for a World Cup hangover for guys coming back in. This Leinster team's winning; they're playing incredibly well. They've won all their games in the Pro 14, and the likes of you see some like Ronan Kelleher really taking his chance. I think before the Treviso game, he'd scored 6 tries in 7 games, and with Sean Cronin being out injured and Rory Best retired, he's really stamping his foot down as putting his foot down for the Six Nations. So that's great to see. But yeah, I think they'll just be excited to come in, turn the page, move forward from the World Cup, and know that they have to perform because there's a lot of guys who've been playing incredibly well while they've been away.
Last thing, I think I just wanted to briefly mention the fact that you mentioned how difficult it is to blend the team back. How difficult is it for the players who have been here and not gone to the World Cup to see the players in the World Cup come back and then get into the team? Is there just a natural animosity is the wrong word, but just a natural unease at how quickly sometimes players get back in from the international team when you've been there grinding in the background?
Yeah, it can be frustrating. I've seen it across my career many times, and it's frustrating when you're a player and you feel you've been performing, and a player comes back in, a big name, who's they've done a lot before, but you might feel that they haven't for that particular period of time, i.e. that season, they haven't been performing. So that's when it's frustrating when you see a player coming back in, picked based on his experience and what he's done before. That can be hugely frustrating. But everyone's different age profiles. But a lot of those younger guys who've come in, they've got their chance. They've played really well. I suppose they'll have to be looking at it. It's out of their control. It's the coach's decision. But for the likes of Ronan Kelleher, as we mentioned, he couldn't have done any more. So I'm sure he'll be playing. But if he's not, he'll be saying he can't do any more. He's now a lot further forward than he was than when the season started. He's fit. He's played really well, and that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
But I think Stuart Lancaster spoke before the guys come back from the World Cup that they can't come back with a hangover because if they're not playing well, there's guys there that are who will start ahead of them.
All right, Mike, we'll let you go. Thanks a million, man.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
And just a reminder, we've got 2 live games for you here on Off the Ball over the course of the weekend. Toulouse against Connacht at 1 o'clock. It is Nathan and Johnny Murphy, the 2 Murphys. And Munster against Racing is a 5:15 kickoff. Neil Tracy, Keith Wood and Liam Toland are on commentary duty for that one. So an entirely unbiased trio of Munster men commentating on Munster against Racing.